How you guys doing? My name is Suave, and today you're gonna be listening to me react to why can't the U.S. solve poverty. If you guys like any of this content, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into it.
7.9 million. That's the number of Americans currently living in poverty, accounting for 11.6% of the total population. That's despite the fact that America ranks first as the richest nation in the world in terms of GDP.
The United States is known for having this great abundance, and at the same time, alongside that abundance, there is widespread poverty and economic insecurity.
Yeah, and that's a really great point that she made. Is because how can we be known for having this abundance of opportunity, this abundance of jobs, this abundance of this and that and third, when there's people literally living on the streets and not even having a chance to actually get a job and work above minimum wage, which is still $7.25. The living wage, I believe, should be somewhere between $20 and 14 cents, but that's still a large gap, and it's that gap that keeps getting wider and wider. Then people aren't even gonna be able to live anymore, let alone afford anything.
Sometimes you question, we're in the United States of America. How can the citizens be going through such a issue? We always boast that we're a superpower, that we are the...
Income inequality is one of the big reasons why the US suffers from such high rates of poverty. The income for the top 10% was more than 13 times higher than income at the bottom 10%.
And that's what it gets back me to saying about gaps. That's 13 times the amount of income. That's a lot of money. A certain amount of people are making more than the other half. That's too big of a gap. And if either those people don't start getting taxed heavy, or we start giving more job opportunities to people who don't make 13 times the amount of income they're supposed to be making, then I don't believe the gap's going to be closer anytime soon.
According to the US Census,
we unfortunately in the United States are at the very high end in terms of income inequality. And so what happens is when the distance gets further and further away, the rungs on the ladder get further away, and it's harder for people to climb those rungs out of poverty into the middle and to the upper class.
See, just like I said right here,
Out of poverty into the middle.
fast food workers on strike, $15 union now. They're begging for at least $15, not even the whole 24.15 living wage. They're asking for 15, and if they're getting paid below that, then what is that? That's more like a high school freshman getting their first job, not a 32-year-old who's trying to provide for 4 kids. That's impossible. You can't do it unless you're working some ridiculous hour work weeks, 98, 100-hour work weeks. And then how are you going to even find time to raise those said children? It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense.
The upper class.
the pandemic has made inequality worse. The Gini index, which measures the nation's income inequality, rose for the first time in a decade by 1.2% in 2021.
The reason the pandemic has made that worse is because when you talk to large organizations, corporations, what they saw was that staff was leaving, but they had a response to that, right? Their response was, let's give bonuses, let's give raises. Many organizations, many small businesses, government, they don't have that luxury. So inflation has kept up with the money that most people in the 1% have made, but it has deepened and widened the gap between those that have money and those that do not.
Research by MIT estimates that the living wage in the United States is $24.16 per hour for a family of four.
Exactly.
But the federal minimum wage is set at $7.25.
How is anybody supposed to take this amount, right, and raise a family, be there for homes, be there for school to help, be there from home and help your children with homework? How is this possible? This is too big of a gap. Way too big.
Per hour. This means that a typical family of four
Out of poverty and provide their own agency to actually create the opportunity for upward mobility.
The official poverty measure in the US today is based on calculations from the mid-1960s. It's calculated by comparing pre-tax income against a threshold set at 3 times the cost of minimum diet.
And this whole system is, like they just said here, is based on the 1960s. And if you aren't living under a rock, a lot of things has happened since then. So not only the living wage is stuck at a crappy rate, it's based off on an old system. So the whole system needs to be renewed. There needs to be an entirely new system people can judge based off of.
In 1963.
It's more comprehensive, and in that way it's an improvement on the official poverty measure.
But some experts argue that even the supplemental poverty measure isn't a perfect method.
While it looked to close the gap on certain indicators that the original poverty measure was not taking into consideration, it did not go far enough. Food is one of those places where we are still not taking into account what food may cost in a state like New York versus a state like Mississippi. So if you have a universal brush for the whole country, you're going to miss a number of people that are either at risk of falling into poverty or are already technically living in poverty but are not counted by the measure.
Anyway, guys, if you like what I just said in this video, if you like the video in general, go ahead and leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and see you guys in tomorrow.